Welcome to the Accidental Business Owner podcast, the show that lifts the lid on what it really takes to grow, scale and successfully exit your business without losing your sanity, soul or savings. Real stories, raw lessons, proven strategies. Let's dive into this week's episode. Hi, Jay Allen from TrueNORTH and host of the Accidental Business Owner podcast. Welcome. I want to talk to you about how to be able to sell your genius repeatedly without having to customize each and every offer that you put out there to each customer. And it starts with, today's podcast is going to share a story with you about a client I worked with a long time ago now, almost 10 years ago, but is a great example of the impact that changing from a satisfying everyone to really knowing who your target audience is and being willing to be able to say no to some otherwise quite lucrative opportunities, as long as you've got absolute clarity on where the business is going. Over the last few weeks, I've been talking to you about the importance of having big ideas and our BFAG. If you go back to at the start of 2026, when we talked about possibility thinking and understanding the importance of being able to have a truly inspirational goal of where we're going to be in 12 months' time. So today, I want to look at the operational impact of what you're doing so far or what you've been doing in business with regards to appeasing customers and inquiries and the impact or the lag factor it's having on both you and your business. And to do that, we're going to be able to talk about, like I say, a client I worked with over 10 years, just over 10 years ago now. And for the benefits of this exercise or podcast, we're going to call him Mike. So when I first met Mike, he was at the pre-revenue stage. I was speaking at a large conference and sharing our ADDAZERO methodology on how to be able to scale and the difference between a growing business and a scale-up business. And after I came off stage, there was a number of people that had gathered around to be able to ask further questions and exchange business cards in order for us to have one-to-one conversations. Certainly at the start of TrueNORTH, that was a predominant driver of how I was to attract and win new customers. I used to speak on a lot of stages, both here in the UK and across the world, in order to be able to share our methodology and talk about the difference between growth and scale and how to be able to apply that effectively in an SME business. And then a number of people in the audience, I knew that for every 100 people in the audience, that 27 of them would hand me a business card, that 13 of them would buy a program, be it a book or a one-off event or one of our freedom techniques or maybe a VIP day, and 9 of them would buy a progressive program and would become what I call lifetime value clients, people that spend a minimum of 12 months working with us to be able to enhance both them and the business. And therefore, because I got the data, because I understood what it took to be able to speak to the right amount of people in the right environments, to be able to generate the right amount of inquiries and leads and conversions in order to be able to keep the business full and operating efficiently, I knew where and when to speak in order to be able to drive that growth. And Mike was one of those people that handed me a business card and said, I've had an idea. We're not even started trading yet. I'm still full-time employed. But everything that you've just said on stage about not building a growth business, whereas the top line grows, the bottom line tends to grow with it. And although the risk grows, the reward tends not to grow at the same rate. I wanted to be able to create a scaling business where the revenue continues to grow without having a direct impact on bottom line net profit growth. And the difference between growing businesses and scaling businesses is one grows at a far slower rate than the other by having 5 set multiples in place. And I'm going to talk about that in the next podcast next week about scaling your business. However, for today, I want to be able to look at the selling your genius repeatedly and the impact it can have on your scalability when you start to provide bespoke or tailored support and service to your clients. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for a 5-star world-class customer experience, about being able to ensure that we look after each and every person that purchases from us in a manner that satisfies their need and requirement. However, I'm also a scale and exit mentor and not just a business coach. And the difference between the two is that one, I need to be able to see sustainable scale, i.e. something that's continual, that it's not a I've got to continually do this in order for it to work, that we can put something in place that continues to grow and evolve and develop without our ongoing impact on doing so. We're not having to continually be the fuel in the car to make the car go further, that we've put something in place that allows it to continue to cruise so we can then subsequently move our efforts and energies elsewhere. So it's all about scale, and to do so, we've got to be willing to say no. And Mike was fascinated by this. Mike said, well, we're not trading yet. We've got no money in the bank. This is just an idea that I want to be able to launch in the next month or so. Surely any business is good business. Surely any money and cash in the till is good business. And certainly I would suggest that for the first 35,000 generated pounds, for the first launch, that embryonic stage, that use it as what I call test and measure bed. Simply go to market and test the idea that you've had to say, am I selling the right product or service to the right people at the right price, at the right time, in the right format in order to be able to make the right returns for my investment? Let's try that again. Am I selling the right product or service to the right people, my niche, in the right manner? Is it online or offline? Is it a physical product or a digital product? How do I deliver that? In the right time frame? Is it being delivered as and when they require it, or are they buying it and sticking it on the shelf and never using it? Or is it a repeatable, at the right price? Have I priced it accordingly that I've got maximum return on investment for my initial investment in being able to build and create the product? Am I maximising every opportunity? Have I tested a pricing fluctuations to establish as to whether I get a better conversion rate or a worse conversion rate, depending on my price sensitivity or flexibility? There's a whole variety of things I need to give considerations to ensure I've got the right price, the right product, the right people, the right method, in order to be able to give me the right returns. And to do so, you need to do some maths. You need to be able to have the data. You need to have done some test and measuring to ensure that we're working to our efficiency, to our maximum capable opportunity. And Mike was fascinated by all of this, and therefore we started working together very quickly after that conference to be able to put the things in place that during that test and measure phase that we could measure and capture the right data in order to be able to make some good, strong decisions early on in the business's evolution. Certainly by the end of year one, we'd gathered so much data that we were now able to predict what and where and when and why, that we could make some far bigger decisions to go from low six figures to high six figures, and we grew, or Mike's business grew from zero, from no money down and no money income, from a zero revenue business into a £500,000 revenue business in less than 2 years, off the back of those first few months, test and measure, and then identify as to what's working, what's not, and to go all in. And my God, Mike jumped in with both feet, both arms, and a diving mask. He was in on being able to properly execute and accelerate the speed of growth by understanding what works and what doesn't, how to be able to build a growing or build a scaling business at the expense of not having a growing business. And the example I want to be able to give for this and why it's so relevant to you is what happened at the middle of year 3. So by the end of Q1, year 3, we were just about touching the 7-figure milestone. We're almost invoicing at about £89,000 a month in revenue off the result of all of that hard work and data that's led to those decisions being made. We were somewhere between the £79,000 and £85,000 average per month at the end of year two, going into year three. We were just on the cusp of being able to get towards the projected £1 million revenue milestone, not exit point. Mike had told me that he wanted to be able to exit for 9 figures. How quickly could we get to an exit value and an EBITDA sales value of £100 million? So we'd worked backwards from the projected exit value to understand as to what does the business need to look like, what systems and processes do we need to have in place, when should we put them in place in order for that to become an opportunity and a reality, how to be able to attract private equity investment, how to be able to go for seed funding, what does floating on the stock market look like, how to go become a public liability business, what does all of that look like, and we did that early on. So instead of being able to grow in phases and then often a change of management or change of leadership or change in direction in order to be able to move from one step to the next step, we scaled it all the way back to the very beginning. And in those first 12 months, we were talking about a 9-figure exit value and what that would look like at some stage in the future. And therefore, all of our thinking, as I talked about a couple of weeks ago with regards to future thinking and being able to future-proof the business, well, all of that thinking enabled us to be able to make some far bigger, better, bolder decisions based on the data that we were collecting from day one. And this particular incident that I'm about to share with you now happened at the end of Q1 in year 3. At the time, we'd started off as a test product, selling the product as a membership for £7 a month. It was a £7 a month opt-in or investment to be able to be a member of Mike's organisation, and in order to be able to have access to products and services that were delivered behind a paywall of £7. And as soon as we'd started to be able to establish that, get the testimonials and the reviews and this and the other, it went from £7 to £17 a month, not for founder members, not for those existing customers, but for new customers. There was a new price introduced, and we started selling for 17, and then it went to 37, and then it went to 67, and then it went to 117. And at the time of 3 years, people were paying £397 a month. New customers were paying £397 a month for single membership, or £1,500 a month for company membership, where all of your employees had access through the firewall to the products and services he had available within his community. So it was either £397 for a single seat or £1,500 per company, and I think it was for a maximum of 50 seats employee entitlement, if you like, as a benefits package to employees. And at the point that this happened, we were selling, or Mike was out there with a small sales team selling to corporates as an added benefit just pre-lockdown, but selling as a bonus to employees, as a benefiting kind, if you like, to be able to have access to his membership and to have access to these products and services for a one-off monthly fee to the customer, to the business of £1,500 a month. And a large corporate that had got not just a few employees, but had got nearly 300,000 employees, came along and said, we like your product and would be really interested in making it available to all of our employees. All 300,000 employees, we would like to have access to it. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to sell that for £1,500 a month. We expect you to be able to charge accordingly. However, we don't want our employees to know that they're buying it from a third-party source and that we've just bolted it on. We would like that all of your products and services to be white labelled and to be rebranded in our company name. And we're happy to be able to pay a one-off fee for being able to do so, but we would like you to be able to come up with a quote of how much it would cost to have everything that you've currently got, 3 years worth of content, everything that you've currently got, duplicated, unbranded from your company and rebranded as our company and made available to 300,000 people. Now, this was payday. This was golden pockets. The sales team that did the pitch came back and they were ecstatic. Mike, we're going to go from 1 million to 2 million in the signing of a cheque. We believe that we can get this customer to be able to pay £25,000 to £35,000 a month for access for their platform, and a further £50,000 to £60,000, possibly £70,000 for us to spend the time to rebrand and to duplicate in order for them to be able to do so. We reckon this is a £500,000 contract that we've done in a day. Aren't you excited? And Mike, appreciative of their efforts, but before responding and saying, wonderful, well done guys, there's a bonus, utilised the same methodology that we'd taught him from day one. That before you make a decision, you run it through the data. You run it through the spreadsheet. You analyse it from the marketing, the sales, the operations, the finance, the team perspective, and then determine, does the data support the decision that you're about to make? And what we identified is it was going to take 2 to 3 members of the staff 14 weeks to go through every single product and service that would be made available, to duplicate it. This is long before AI. This is back in 2017, 2018. To be able to take all of their products and services that are currently available and selling to existing customers, to duplicate it onto a different website with a different login and a different access, to unbrand all of the products and services that they created and to rebrand it in the company. It was going to take 2 to 3 members of staff, 14 weeks to be able to do that work, and subsequently increase costs by a small margin, but a margin nevertheless, in order to be able to have 300,000 people capable of accessing that at any one time. Now he got a fee, and now he could look at the profitability of what they were about to quote and make a decision that this wasn't a £70,000 bill, this was about a £200,000 rebranding bill, and then subsequently how much they would charge per month. It was going to be about £18,000 a month ongoing for them to be able to have access. However, we don't stop there, because we don't just look at what we've got and what we could do. We then say, but if we did that once, are we then entering that market, and might other people then say, could you do the same for us? And is it a further 14 weeks and a further additional cost in able to replicate and replicate and replicate, in comparisons to what would it take if those 3 members of staff who were removed from the existing business, and therefore the negative impact it would have on growth for our existing customers, and therefore the potential conversion rate or lifetime value rate, if we remove those 3 people with all the knowledge, experience and background to be able to do the rebranding exercise, what would it take if we chose not to do that and to say no to this wonderful opportunity, but for them to concentrate on continuing to grow and evolve and develop our existing business? So we've got an existing model, pricing model, and we've already got the data to be able to support that. We've now created a new spreadsheet to identify what would it look like in terms of additional revenue if we chose to take on the contract. We've then put the two together to say, although this would generate an additional revenue, what impacts might that have on our existing capability and delivery and the projections that this existing business is doing. And then we did an overlay on what happens if we just concentrated on doing more of this. And what we identified is, whilst this was about a £465,000 opportunity, it was also going to stint existing growth by about £250,000. And if we applied the same level of thinking that we were going to do to satisfy this customer to our existing business, it would probably generate an additional £600,000 or £700,000 of additional revenue. If we stop trying to change lanes to satisfy the whims and quims of somebody else, and we stick to the lane that we're in, it's not about being the breadth of capability. It's about being the depth of capability and the speed in which that will then transition us. Learning to say no to good opportunities that are slowly degrading and derailing our uniqueness is curtailing the speed of growth in which we can move. And if Mike had identified, as we did at the very start, that he wanted to be able to achieve a 9-figure exit, then this one potential exercise of winning £500,000 worth of new business, but the impact that would have on the speed of growth we were already seeing in the existing business, and the risk that this might attract other people to ask us to do that also, was sufficient to be able to say no to £465,000 payday in order to be able to continue to grow at the rate of £600,000 to £800,000 a year by not being distracted. Now, Mike never actually made his £100 million sale. He actually sold for multiple 8 figures, a lot sooner than he'd anticipated. That's a different story for a different episode. But for today, it's about understanding that the more that you dilute your uniqueness, the clarity of who you are, what you do it for, why you do it, and how you do it, the more you satisfy other people's desire, unless you do the data to support it, it's at the potential risk of derailing the scale and growth that you've already got within your own business. So please, if you haven't got so already, have a spreadsheet, start collecting the data, start analysing the data that it gives us to make bigger, bolder, better decisions, quicker and more confidently in the future. And if you'd like to learn more about how to do that, I'm Jay Allen from TrueNORTH, the ethical coaching company awarded to us from Smith & Williamson in London in 2017 for the way in which we are growing, scaling and helping business owners just like you to exit successfully. If you'd like to learn more, I'd love to have a conversation with you. And if nothing else, simply complete our business scale-up assessment to understand your scale score. It might be less than you first thought it would to be. God bless, take care. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to the Accidental Business Owner podcast with me, Jay Allen. If today's episode sparked a thought, challenged your thinking, or gave you a new tool to grow smarter, share it, rate it, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment of transformation. God bless, take care, and I'll see you again next week.